What's up, YouTube? It's a Biblical Truther. I'm making this video today because I watched a video by EntertheStars on Friday that made perfect sense as to Revelation 9 and what it says. I asked him for permission to mirror the video he made, and he said yes, that wouldn't be a problem. So it's pretty much the last 7 to 9 minutes. I did add an extra clip from a video he did yesterday that kind of explains the crowns on the head of the locust. But watch it through to the end, man. It's pretty enlightening, and it makes perfect sense as to what John saw when he was writing the book of Revelations. I just thought it was pretty crazy, and how he tied that in with today's events, as well as how the spiritual side of this whole war is manifesting in our physical reality. So check it out, man. It's pretty interesting. Here we go.
Cleanse this child's spirit with your radiance and unconquerable light. Pray so.
Pray so. Pray so.
Pray so.
Repeat after me. I wear the armor of Mithras.
I wear the armor of Mithras.
And the light.
And the light.
It shields me from all that is harmful.
Enter the Stars. Mithra. Rise of the counterfeit Christian sun worshippers. Today we're going to talk about the cult of Mithra. And yes, indeed, they were counterfeit Christians. History tells us that they worshipped Sol Invictus. Sol Invictus looks a lot like the Statue of Liberty, which just so happens to have the same acronym, S-O-L, Statue of Liberty, Sol. Now, Sol was born December 25th. Why? Because Sol wanted to be the counterfeit of Christ. We also have other synchronicities that dovetail into Mithra being the counterfeit of Jesus Christ. Apollyon also shares the same birthday. Now, here's where things get creepy, because history also tells us that Helios is linked in to Sol as well. And it's all about the crown. The C-O-R-O-N-A. Now, Tertullian, in his treatise on the military crown, records that Mithraists in the army were officially excused from wearing celebratory coronets on the basis of Mithraic initiation ritual that included refusing a proffered crown, because their only crown was Mithras. Now, the roots of Mithras goes all the way back to this colossal statuary erected by King Antiochus. Mount Nimrut, Mithras is shown beardless, wearing a Phrygian cap, much like the same Phrygian cap that is worn during Saturnalia. Now, he was originally seated on a throne alongside other deities and the king himself. On the back of the thrones, there's an inscription in Greek, which includes the name Apollo, Mithras, Helios. There's also an altar or block at the Pietro e Marcellino on the Esquiline in Rome, and it is inscribed with a bilingual inscription by an imperial freedman named T. Flavius Hyginus. It is dedicated to Sol Invictus Mithras. In later antiquity, the Greek name of Mithras occurs in the text known as the Mithras Liturgy, a part of the Paris Greek magical papyrus. Here, Mithras is given the epithet the great god and identified with the sun god Helios. Others also observe that Mithras was identified with the Greek sun god Helios. A historian by the name of Michael Spadell, who specializes in military history, associates Mithras with the sun god Orion, and another argues that Mithras is the prime traveler on the celestial stage, represented by the other symbols of the scene. The unconquered sun moves through the constellations. Now, early Christian apologists noted similarities between Mithraic and Christian rituals, but nonetheless took on an extremely negative view of Mithraism. They interpreted Mithraic rituals as evil copies of Christian ones. Tertullian wrote that as a prelude to Mithraic initiation ceremony, the initiate was given a ritual bath, and at the end of the ceremony received a mark on the forehead. He described these rites as diabolical and counterfeits of the baptism and chrismation of Christians. Justin Martyr contrasted Mithraic initiation communion with the Eucharist. Wherefore also the evil demons and mimicry have handed down that the same thing should be done in the mysteries of Mithras. For that bread and cup of water are in these mysteries set before the initiate with certain speeches you either know or can learn, is what Justin Martyr wrote. Now, who is Helios and Apollyon in the Mithraic tradition? Well, helium is named after Helios. Helium is the ether of the dead, rising up from the ground toward the heavens. Helium is only found with methane deep in the earth. Methane, helium, decomposed life. And America, which is the modern Heliopolis of the world, contains the most helium of anywhere on the planet. The helium that fills the red balloons that carry the ether back to heaven.
Helium is the second most abundant element in the universe, and the United States is the world's biggest producer of the lighter-than-air gas. Yet those who depend on helium are now in a fight to get their hands on it. Michelle Miller shows us why talk of the worst shortage in decades isn't just hot air.
Inside the Balloon Saloon, you can find almost any kind of balloon imaginable.
We can't do any of this without helium. There's no other gas substitute.
For more than 30 years, this business has helped New Yorkers celebrate important events, from World Series parades to countless weddings and birthday parties. But owner Sharon Hershkowitz worries the good times are about to burst.
We kept on getting rate increases, and my supplier was telling me, we don't know if you're going to be getting any helium.
Has it ever been this bad?
No, never. It's never been this bad. It's frightening.
Hershkowitz isn't the only one whose access to helium is up in the air. Welders, deep-sea divers, and makers of MRI machines, dirty bomb detectors, lasers, fiber optics, and computer chips, all of them need helium too. About half of the U.S. helium supply and a third of the world's comes from this dusty swath of the Texas Panhandle. This is the Federal Helium Reserve outside Amarillo, operated by the Bureau of Land Management.
In 1920, the government had figured out how to extract helium from natural gas.
What was the use?
They used helium dirigibles to protect convoys of ships going across the transatlantic crossings.
By 1960, the gas was so crucial to national security that Congress passed a law authorizing the federal government to purchase 100 years' worth of helium. Much of it was then stored in porous rock, 3,000 feet below the Earth's surface.
Why is it underground?
So
people wouldn't bomb them.
Today, this area is known as the helium capital of the world. There is still enough helium here to fill 54,267 Goodyear blimps. How many of these wells are in this field?
There's 23 wells that are active.
Every year, the reserve puts 2 billion cubic feet of crude helium up for sale. But with helium's usefulness ever expanding, even that isn't enough to fill the growing demand.
Why don't you just pull more helium out of the ground?
If we could, we would. We are currently producing at maximum capacity.
The problem? Private suppliers, which capture helium as a waste product of natural gas, have been unable or unwilling to increase production.
If the natural gas prices are low, there really is a very little incentive to produce just the helium. Some of the new plants that were scheduled to be online are not. All of these things together are causing, I'd hate to use the term, but a perfect storm situation.
And that storm could get even worse. By 1996, helium's national security importance had fizzled, while the reserve had racked up $1.3 billion in debt. So Congress passed another law to phase the government out of the helium business.
What we're trying to do is to put the market the way it should be, in the hands of the industry.
In October, the reserve's debt will finally be paid off. But because of the way the law is written, it may have to stop selling its helium then too, with 9 billion cubic feet still underground.
You wouldn't want anyone to be truth, though, would you, Richie? You wouldn't want anyone to know what you're hiding.
And now let's read about Apollyon, Abaddon, in the book of Revelation. Why? Because it's all happening right now. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth. And to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. And in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were crowns like gold. And their faces were as the faces of men, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. And they had breastplates, and it were breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was the sound of chariots, of many horses running to battle. And their faces were as the faces of men, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. And they had breastplates, and it were breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was the sound of chariots, of many horses running to battle. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. And they had king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, a bad dawn, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. Continues, the locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. On their heads they wore something like crowns of gold. Now here's where things get interesting, because there is a phenomenon called the Kopp-Etchells effect. And in fact, it looks like crowns, golden crowns, on top of the head of helicopters, especially in the desert. There's your golden crown. You know, it's amazing how quick people will jump against you when they think you're stretching something. They get very angry about it because they can't come to terms with the fact that their president quite possibly could be trying to manifest Revelation 9 right before their eyes. They cannot come to terms with it. Here is the face like a man. A face resembled human faces. Does that not look like a human face to you? 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. It looks like a face to me. So we've got crowns of gold, faces that resemble human faces. And someone's like, well, what are you talking about? Where's the woman's hair? The woman's hair and the teeth like lions, to me, is obvious. Here's the teeth like a lion. They're right there on the front of the helicopters. Some of these guys, even their helmets even have teeth on the face mask of the helmet. And this continues on. Here's more of the effect that happens in these dusty environments. The rotor blades go through the air and create this halo effect, which looks like a crown. A crown is simply a halo. It's a circle. Here's more teeth. And here is the hair, like woman's hair. When they land in the dust, it kicks up this dust, which looks like woman's hair. Now, people can do with this information what they want. This doesn't mean the final fulfillment of Revelation 9. What it means is you have a president that is very aware of biblical prophecy. And in fact, in this peace deal, you'll see that play out as well. Get to that at the end of the